So yes, welcome to anyone watching live or on the archive of this on YouTube. This is going to be going through the second half of the Mothership Work in Progress PSG that they released as part of the Kickstarter, but they did release it wide, so you can find the link to download it, get it on the Discord. It's basically available to everyone. Last time we dug through sort of the meat and potatoes of the actual, most of the nitty gritty of play that you're going to experience with, you know, things like violence and skill checks and stat checks and building a character and all that. This time, I'm digging into the second half of the book, the back half here. Like you can see the space travel. This is some of the stuff I'm most interested to look at because it's the stuff that I think is probably more fleshed out from Zero Edition. And I think it's also something that is probably, what's the word, way I want to put it? I think it's something that probably a lot of people in Zero Edition maybe didn't experience. I don't know how many people were playing full, larger campaigns, and I think a lot of the stuff here, space travel, shore leave, things like that, is where they have the ability to move it from a simple sort of like a more one-shot focused game, which I think is always kind of a thing in horror games, into a more sustainable campaign game. So I'm really interested to see how this structure comes out with these rule sets. So let's go ahead and dig into it. You know, it's called a read through for a reason. I'm going to read through. Get it blown up here so it's easier for you guys to see. I will probably pop myself off here too. I mean, I don't know. Should I stay on here? Should I make myself little? I always feel like, you know, my hubris of putting myself on screen, but then I feel like people do it all the time, so people must like it, I guess. I'll leave it up there for now. All right, so page 24, space travel. Awesome graphic here, actually, that we got to see just a second ago, but this really awesome art. They actually used this in the Kickstarter for stretch goals and stuff, which was cool to see this same sort of art used there. So I think a lot of people have fun associations with it now, so going and seeing it in the actual book, which is probably where it was first used, is pretty fun. Space travel. Orbital travel. Orbital travel is the simplest and fastest form of space travel. Shuttles and space elevators routinely launch from a planet or moon's surface into outer space, where they can dock or connect with an orbiting spaceport. Once in port, you may be able to charter a shuttle to travel to a nearby moon or asteroid field. Interplanetary travel. For further travel within your system, you may need to buy a ticket to board an interplanetary passenger liner. The trip could take weeks on the short end to years if you need to reach the furthest boundaries of your system. You can purchase extra cargo space, or occasionally there's room to dock a small vessel. That's kind of interesting. I've seen some talk about this, but I haven't read through it yet. So if we look here, 10 minutes to get from planet surface to outer space. Days from a planet to an orbiting moon or a space station. So to get from here to here, basically. Hours to the asteroid field. Weeks to a nearby planet or jump point. Months to a distant planet. Years to the edge of the system. So it seems like rules is written here, kind of what they're going for, based on just this initial look, is the kind of jump point, jump gate. Like FTL is used from a point, you know, somewhere in the solar system, and then everywhere else from there, you are sort of in a maybe faster version of what we have now, but pretty similar, right? Like a much considerably slower than light chug along kind of drive within system. So that's interesting. I don't know how that varies from what there was before explicitly, but I think that's definitely one of many different, you know, you can go full Star Wars, you just warp drive to wherever you want, or you can do something like this that's maybe a little bit more hard sci-fi in some ways, but definitely not full hard sci-fi. All right, example, travel to Banco 4. Warden, the good news is that the Banco system is only one jump away. The bad news is there isn't a jump liner coming by here for a few months. The closest one is a bit away on Komarov. Margot, okay, so what does that mean? Warden, you'll need to take this space elevator to get off world and then charter a passenger liner to Komarov. Then catch a jump liner from there to Banco. Knox, how long is that all going to take? Warden, there's a passenger liner leaving in a week. So you take the elevator up to the station, then about 3 months in cryo to get to Kamarov. If nothing goes wrong, you'll make the transfer to the jump liner with a week to spare. Then it's a couple of weeks to the jump point, a couple of weeks in hyperspace, a few more weeks to get from the jump point to Bangkok 4, Margot, for a grand total of, Warden, about 5 months all in. Margot, we don't have that kind of time or money, says Knox. It looks like something. Like 12,000 credits, and I only have 7. Warden, that sounds right. You could also charter a jump courier tomorrow, but it starts at 25,000 credits. Knox, even if we did, where are we going to get that kind of money? Warden, I'm glad you asked. I assume the idea being that this would lead into a kind of it would be a hook into proper adventure. I suppose is the idea here. So let's go to the next page and see how the rest of this all reads, I think. So, question mark in terms of time, jump through hyperspace. I guess it depends on the distance of where you're going. And then weeks from the jump point to your destination again. Interstellar travel. To leave your system, you'll need a vessel capable of traveling through hyperspace via a jump drive. Jump drives are rated from 1 through 9, which represents how great a distance through hyperspace a ship can withstand. It usually takes a few weeks to reach a jump point from which the ship can then safely enter hyperspace. Most crews spend their time in hyperspace in cryosleep while an android operates the astrogation computer. Those who stay awake during hypersleep report strange and conflicting stories about the experience, and often androids' memories of their time in hyperspace are at best described as unsettling. Jumps usually... So this is kind of interesting because I think a lot of people kind of thought the way the rules are written, like in Mothership-y canon, which there is, very specifically an anti-canon of Mothership, but that it was like you can't be awake during hyperdrive, like hyperspace. It will hurt you, harm you, damage you, kill you, that kind of thing. This is just saying like weird things happen then and you don't want to be awake, which I think leaves things open for a lot more possibilities. Jumps usually take about 2 weeks. However, time dilation due to the effects of relativity on faster than light travel are uncertain and seemingly random. A crew will enter from a jump 3 voyage to learn they have been gone several years, while others may return only a few seconds after their departure. Regular trade routes seem to wear down the chaotic effects, but those who make long jumps, like the legendary Jump 9 colony ships, are never expected to return. No one is certain what the effects of multiple Jump 9s would be, and perhaps those pioneers have returned just millennia into our future or somewhere else in our past. So that's pretty cool. I like that. Obviously, it's ripe for every sort of, a million misadventures in hyperspace. The idea of a colony ship showing up in the distant past or the distant future. You could set up I used to play a lot of EVE Online, so having something that's sort of this EVE Online style scenario of like you could come out of jump and like Earth's gone, everyone's gone, like you have no way to get back to them, I think is cool. This does definitely read a little more harder sci-fi than I thought that it would, which is kind of interesting. Like I said, not to say that it's realistic or accurate to science, but it has more of that bent than a just like sort of fire and forget kind of system. Travel cost breakdown. So 150 credits to get onto the space elevator to get into orbit. Not that bad. A shuttle, pretty cheap too, all told in terms of mothership stuff, but you start to get really, really expensive, right? Hey, you're trying to get all the way to the edge of the system, or you're trying to get there in first class. It's gonna be 120,000 credits. Even on the cryosleep only, it's 102,000. Like this, really pricey stuff starts building up, which is very core to the mothership experience, right? Your characters need to grind for money. They're often very in debt. It has that sort of capitalist horror element to it as well, of that you're always in debt, you're always behind, you need to always be being productive to get what you want. I will say my initial feel on this is that even just this little example here is that this is like, I don't know how much fun this type of exchanges for me as a player or as the warden here. It doesn't seem super difficult to calculate this stuff as, like, say, the warden. If someone's like, we want to go to this system, you go, okay, well, I know from the module I'm using or the map I've made for my homebrew that that's, a 6-month hyperdrive travel, like, jump. It's a 6-month jump, and we can say it's going to take you 2 weeks to get out there. It's going to take you 2 weeks to get back. So we're going to say 7 months altogether for the trip. But it doesn't really sound like there's a lot of, like, bartering and back and forth to do here. So I wonder how these would come out in play. Would you play through this more like, that moment to moment play of something like D&D typically is done in, or would you just montage this? And I'm interested to see if this book or maybe the Shipbreakers guide that's coming out is going to have any stuff to, maybe, are there tables to roll on for how does your travel go? How does it not go? Do you get in a fight with other people on the ship you're on? Does the drive break? All those kind of things. But, this is definitely a good framework here to do what most people are going to want to do, I think. Ports. When you're in need of a place to repair, refuel, and catch a little R&R, you'll want to fly to your nearest port. There are 5 basic classes of port based on their safety, importance, and affluence. X-class ports. Notorious criminal settlements and pirate bases, X-class ports are beyond the reach of the company, making them much more dangerous and much more free. C-class ports. Run down, out of the way outposts, refueling stations, and forward military posts. You can find C-class ports on any frontier settlement or rim space backwater. Minimally staffed, minimally supplied. B-class ports. Blue-collar industrial stations and large-scale military installations. B-class ports build ships, garrison troops, mine ore, and take care of all the heavy industry required to keep the rim spinning. A-class ports, overpopulated metropolises, trading centers, and power brokers. A-class ports connect ships to corporate headquarters. And then S-class ports, restricted access, palatial estates of the uber wealthy. S-class ports are the rare gems of the void, heavily guarded, invite only. That's cool. Pretty simple system to give an idea of just generally, you can slap one of these on the kind of station that you're coming to, and really quickly in a module, something they could say this counts as this class of port, and really know what you're looking at. I think X class is definitely the most interesting. Like A, B, and C. That's a pretty easy classification. I think there seems like there's most room for interesting stuff in that S class and X class, though. The A through C are probably going to be more mundane shore leaves kind of thing. While in port, you can buy and sell equipment, look for work, buy a ticket, or charter a vehicle, or take some much needed shore leave. And then, yes, I'm very excited to learn about shore leave here. So let's see. Lodging, residence, to have like a monthly residence, how much relaxation costs, how much stress you convert. So it actually looks like that stress converts differently depending on the kind you go at. It's easiest to convert stress at an X class, which I think is kind of interesting. You can get various sorts of treatment for various costs to get rid of like conditions and things you generate from the panic table. Healthcare. So healthcare, it's sort of that same thing. You can get different amounts, different costs, different total wounds you could heal in a stay. And then moonlighting jobs, an interesting kind of chart here. So you would roll what, a D100 it looks like, to see what kind of job you are able to find during your time on your shore leave. So say I roll 64, I go, okay, 60. Oh, so say we're in a B class and I roll 64. B class station, 64, okay, skilled work, half salary. Better than grunt work. And then obviously contract jobs would be where somebody can go in and actually, like, that would be like them giving you a custom adventure for your work. One moment. Okay. Sorry about that. Suddenly there's a weird noise in our apartment bathroom, and hot water's not working and all that kind of fun stuff. So anyway, yeah, we're saying, gives you opportunities to, hey, you can earn some money during your stay. There isn't any work available. There's really low income work available, or there's a custom job, something particularly lucrative, which is kind of fun. All right, shore leave. This is one of the most, my most sort of exciting parts, I think, for this. This is one of the things I've most wanted to see developed out from Zero Edition. Surviving in Mothership is tough, but those who do survive come out even tougher. Between contracts, if you can afford it, you can take shore leave, during which time you can improve your saves, train new skills, and work on other long-term projects. How do I take shore leave? Whenever you're in port, if you have some free time, you can take shore leave. Simply pay the shore leave cost and describe what you'd like to do or accomplish with your time off. To your warden, they'll describe what options are available based on the port you're in, and together you'll create a small scene about your time off duty. What can I do while on shore leave? Shore leave represents the downtime between contracts and adventures, so what you do is completely up to you. Some examples include, but are not limited to, relax, see the sights, grab some drinks, find a new bunkmate, spend your port class's required credits and make a sanity save. If successful, convert stress into points of sanity, fear, or body saves. On a failure, you relieve the stress rolled and don't convert any into saves. Each port class converts a different amount of stress and costs a different amount. So this is kind of, my understanding is this is one of the main sort of advancements that you get for your character. You don't really update your stats, but you way to invest in skills, and you have a way to increase your saves. You get better at surviving, better at handling and avoiding future damage and stress, which is cool. Seek treatment. Get some help for the nightmares that have been keeping you up, and the shakes that won't go away ever since that last stim pack. It takes 3 shore leaves to remove 1 permanent condition. This seems really punishing to me. I have not experienced it yet enough to know if that's a bad thing. But that definitely 3 shore leaves is a lot. When you consider how deadly the game can be, that means that a lot of people may never get a chance to do that with certain characters. But I have not seen that out in play. I just know that, getting a character through sometimes one longer adventure can be a big deal. So here, I'm going to take myself off screen so you can make sure I'm not blocking my own text here. But yeah, so I don't know. That feels like that could be a lot. Or maybe, yeah, I don't know if they could be overcomplicating it or undercomplicating it or something if they do more. It's like I almost want there to be like, certain conditions you could cure pretty easily and other conditions that would take a longer time. But there's always ways to just warden, homebrew that to some extent. Train a skill. Training a new skill takes time and money. You can train at any port or even during long periods of downtime on a ship if your warden allows. It takes 5 shore leaves to learn a new skill. You'll need at least 1 prerequisite, and you'll have to pay for the materials. So trained skill is 10,000 credits, expert skill 50,000 credits, master skill 20,000 credits. To train an expert skill requires 1 trained prerequisite, and to train a master skill requires 1 expert prerequisite. Okay, that makes sense. This feels like this feels like they're going to either incorporate this up here, or there's a little bit of them stating the same thing twice there, just a little more explicitly. So I wouldn't be surprised if we see that get edited or cut down or combined in some way. This is the same thing. I'm thinking kind of the same thing here with the conditions. Although I almost like the conditions taking longer, because those are things, that's like lasting trauma from these horrific things they're experiencing, maybe big, physiological things, weird things like that. I almost like that taking 3, or like taking the longer of the 2 things. But the skills being 5 across the board, that's a lot. That's a lot. I'd be very interested to know how many characters, without the warden intentionally pulling punches through the various adventures and fights and stuff that these crews go into. I'd be very interested to know how many warden or how many characters would even get that 5 shore leaves to get 1 train skill. Feels like it could be nice to have maybe this be like, you know, 2, 4, 6. 2 shore leaves for a train skill, 4 for an expert skill, 6 for a master skill. Master skill in the first half that we read is very described as like it's a doctorate level. You know, you're like a luminary in your field. So it makes sense to me that that would take a long time. But, you know, 5 or 6 shore leaves with space travel and everything, that could be years and years of someone's life, just to get that skill from a 10 to a 15 to a 20. But yeah, so those feel a little long to me. I'm interested in longer campaign play, how that comes out and how people like that, or if that becomes a thing people tweak, or if they even change it before final 1E. Get medical care, slap a fresh bandage on those wounds, and get that weird rash checked out. Each port class heals wounds at a different rate and cost. Once all your wounds are healed, then at the cost of 1 wound, you can heal back up to your maximum health per wound. That's cool, straightforward, easy. Pay money, get some healthcare. Bing, bang, boom. Work on a project. Things have been keeping you up late at night. The thing with the samples you smuggled past quarantine. Maybe you could learn about it. Maybe then they'll listen. It takes 3 to 10 shore leaves to complete a project. This is cool. This could be sort of like the long-term projects and clocks from something like Blades in the Dark. I'd like to see this fleshed out a little more explicitly. Give maybe literally just a paragraph. Give more of a paragraph of examples, you know, like for example, 3 shore leaves would be fitting of, you know, reading through some technical manuals that you found on the abandoned facility. And like 10 would be, you know, transcribing an ancient alien, you know, Rosetta Stone kind of thing. Moonlight. It's against company policy, but earning a few extra credits on your time off can help make or break your next encounter. Check the port table for what kind of work is available. So that's what we looked at before, where you would roll, see what kind of work you have available, and you'd say, hey, during the week of this shore leave that we're playing through right now, you earn 2,000 credits. You can go ahead and add it at the end of the shore leave. That's cool. This is a good way to give that background, sort of background earning of income that I think is really going to be needed and is useful for if you want to have that sort of corporate capitalist horror element to the game that I think comes up in the longer campaign play where, yeah, okay, you have to face the evil aliens, but then you also need to figure out how to make your payment on your ship in time. And it's nice for character and flavor too, to be like, yeah, you know, my guy's a dock worker, between this sort of weird, horrific history and time as like an alien slayer, unintentional alien killer. Loadouts. Your loadout is the armor, weapons, and other gear you start out with. Roll 1d10 on your class's table to find out what your starting loadout is, and then record that on your character sheet. Some loadouts are better than others, but all of them are useful in the hands of someone creative or desperate. Another change from 0E, those all kind of had like, there were like 4 or 5 equipment packs you picked. This has 10 different basic loadouts for every class, which I think is pretty cool. Tank top and camo pants, combat knife, stim pack, all the way to, you know, fatigues, combat shotgun, dog, leash, tennis ball, advanced battle dress, heavy machine gun, HUD. So going from very like, I'm a guy with a gun and my skivvies to I'm a tank. Androids, 1 Jump 9 ticket, manufacturer supplied attire, hazard suit, foam gun, sample collection kit, screwdrivers, scientists, lab coat, screwdriver, med scanner, vaccine, 1 dose, to like scrubs, to civilian clothes, briefcase, prescription pad, fountain pen, poison injector for the scientist. So you're kind of getting your whole, you know, running the gamut of a science-minded individual there. Teamster loadouts, heavy duty work clothes, explosives, cigarettes, or you could have a nail gun, a headlamp, scalpel, loungewear, crowbar, pain pills, 6-pack of beer. So a wide variety there, and enough considering the game only has 4 classes. It's definitely nice to. These are things that could really flavor those characters differently. You might play 3 Teamsters in a row if that's just the role you tend to fill in your group you really like, but rolling 3 of these differently could really lead to a big difference. Credits and pay. Credit is the primary currency in Mothership and are notated as follows. 100 credits equals 100 credits, or 100 CR equals 100 credits. 2.5 is 2.5 thousand. Yeah, notating this and this is a little weird, but 4 billion credits. Starting credits. Awesome art, by the way. You get 2d10 times 10 credits in addition to your starting loadout. If you want to forego a starting loadout and buy all your gear piecemeal, roll 2d10 times 100 for your starting credits instead. So for people who are really more focused into that really explicit, little crunchier character creation, there is that option as well. Salary. If you work for the company, you earn a monthly salary based on what skills you have acquired. You get 500 a month for every trained skill, 1,000 a month for every expert skill, 2,000 a month for every master skill. So that's cool. That also helps decide what your moonlighting pays, but it also gives you like even more incentive to get into those skills in addition to just the main line adventures, which is interesting. Jump pay. Because time while in hyperspace isn't always dependable, the company pays a standard jump pay bonus equal to 1,000 credits regardless of the distance traveled or time spent in hyperspace. Hazard pay. During incredibly dangerous work, the company may settle on paying you 1d5 months of salary as a hazard pay bonus. This payment does not constitute an admission of liability on the part of the company or its agents, nor blank. So more there, but that's a good flavor too. So this is definitely good. These are good guidances, like from the warden perspective of how much should I be paying people for this job? You know, how much are they expected to earn? It's a 6-month job. Okay, 12,000 credits. It's that. This gives you a good sort of standard baseline for those things, so that you know when something is a really valuable job and when something's like a really crappy payout. It's nice to have that stuff surfaced for the players and as a guide for wardens to use too. Firearms. Seeker smart rifle. Far away damage, 1 wound at long range. 2d10 damage at nearby range. Armor piercing rounds. Pulse rifle. This all holds pretty similar to 0 edition, but you know, combat shotgun. So right now, the way it is in the work in progress, and I think that they've even said, I think Sean McCoy may have said on the Discord, this is going to change likely in the final version, but 1 wound of damage means that whole health bar you have. So if you have, you know, have 3 bars, basically have 3 wounds of 12 health each, this just means it clears one of those whole bars. It clears a whole wound. It doesn't matter how much you have, whether that's 20 or whether that's 8, that whole wound gets cleared. And typically stuff that says 1 wound also ignores armor. And would like break armor, essentially. If you have armor points of 5 from advanced battle dress or something, it's getting broken by that and it's doing that whole wounded damage if it hits you. So we looked at this a little earlier in the beginning of the last part of looking through this, but the different criticals are fun. Like, hey, what does a critical count as? It counts as a gunshot or blunt force. Gunshot with advantage, you're going to roll on that crit. You're going to roll on that like wound chart twice. Fire, explosion, basically like saying like, hey, what kind of wound, what kind of critical does this actually do? And then some special things too. Rigging gun, laser cutter, flamethrower, nail gun. I really love this art. I'm interested to see if they keep it. It's from the 0 edition one. I think it's Sean McCoy art. I would not be surprised at all, though, if they maybe do go for a more involved, almost like this page, this armor page with this really awesome, much more detailed art too. But I like this grid paper sketch look. But I could see them going going more all out to make it match, especially back to back with the armor page. It might work better. Hand welder foam gun. Armor. So these are really cool pages here. So yeah, I mean, this like comparison, you know, to like this is really cool and worked really well in that 0 edition, but maybe back to back with like, you know, you've got this very like detailed Cthulhu-y kind of art, then this, and then that. Maybe it's more of a clash than they want. I don't know. I personally really like this because this looks like to me how like a Marine would sketch his gun or something. You know, it looks like someone trying to draw their own stockpile of what they have. But this armor page is awesome. This art's awesome. So advanced battle dress, hazard suit, vac suit, standard crew attire, battle dress. And this is the same things we looked at in the first session and inside the front cover, but just more explicitly laid out. Hey, what does that look like? What does crew attire look like? You know, what's the size of these things? In addition, it also has a lot of the extra equipment here. Short range comms, oxygen supply, headlamps, air filter, heads up display, body cam. It's telling you sort of what's like the standard build out of these things. I think this is cool. It's a great visualization. Gives a little bit more detail about, you know, 1 liter of water lasts for 4 days, can be fitted with an oxygen tank for up to 12 hours of O2 supply. Those other little details that can come up to really make or break somebody. Equipment. Oftentimes the difference between life and death is having the right tools for the job at hand. Below is a non-comprehensive list of the kind of gear and tools available to players at the start of the game. Assorted tools. So prices, breakdown. I mean, a lot of Mothership's greatest stuff is that a lot of the sort of world building, a lot of the setting comes out in these tables. You get a feel for what the universe is typically like based on what kind of things you're seeing in these tables. So these are always awesome. If you were going to hand build a loadout, this would be here. So sorted tools, automed, binoculars, bioscanner, body cam, Mohab unit, tent, canteen, stove, rucksack, compass, and sleeping bag. Grants comfort 20 when resting. Chem light, crowbar, diagnostic scanner, recon drone, salvage drone, electronic tool set. So a lot of pretty much almost any kind of thing you could probably think you need for a Mothership style adventures and jobs you should probably find here. I have looked through some of this in my own work for my current project, and there wasn't anything I found super lacking in it. I think it has a lot of good flavors, sort of the standard, good inclusions as this sort of standard equipment list. I think there's plenty of more room for more flavorful kind of like wild options, but I think those kind of things are what's going to come in more modules and stuff like that, because they're not going to fit the typical setting of every game, whereas these are like the meat and potatoes kind of equipment pieces. MREs, oxygen tanks, pets, pain pills, portable computer terminals, radio jammers, rebreathers, classic stuff. Really excited about pets. I've actually already seen this bit, but I think it's awesome. Pets can be great companions, but failure to protect them can come at a great cost. So organic pets, they are not as hardy as synthetic pets. Their instinct is a little higher, so they're sort of base stat that you use for everything. They can have 1 trained skill. They give you advantage on comfort saves, which is huge. The caregiver has to take 1 stress whenever the pet takes damage. And the caregiver makes a panic check if the pet is killed, and it increases your minimum stress by 1, which is also big if you lose them. That's a big appropriate penalty. Synthetic can have 2 trained skills or an expert skill. Just only gives you +5 to comfort saves. And then sanity save or 1 stress whenever pet takes damage, so you don't take nearly the amount of stress from it as you do otherwise. And the caregiver gains 1 stress if pet is destroyed. So much lower threshold, but you don't get that comfort bonus, which I think is going to be the big thing. That's the big difference. Carrying capacity. Use common sense to determine what you can reasonably carry if it becomes important. We recommend players be able to readily access a number of items equal to their strength divided by 10. So your strength might be 30. You could have 3. Seems pretty small. Everything else everything else should be stowed in a backpack or bag. Oh, okay, so it's saying you got 3 items like on your belt, and everything else you have in a backpack or stowed. The average person can carry about 1/4 of their body weight. The average Marine is expected to carry between 90 to 160 pounds in combat. Depending on your setting, androids may be able to carry 1d5 times that amount. That's a decent guideline over. I think most people aren't going to worry too much about carrying capacity until it, like, you know, like it says in here, it breaks common sense. So I think it's fine for them to have a pretty simple rule on that. Trinkets. Roll on this. Trinkets and patches are awesome part of this game for people who've not played it. They are a great way to build character, to build something to your character without having to build a D&D style sort of backstory. Like, oh, I come with 2 pages written of a story about what my character did before then. Because your character might not make it out very long, it's so much better to have, it's better to build their story through play and then get attached to them as you go. Don't come in attached to them. And this is a great way to give you a hint of what they might be like that you can then bring out and play. So D100 to get a trinket, D100 to get patches, you know, patches on the, or like on your jumpsuit, keep well lubricated, Queen of Hearts, help wanted, you know, flame emoji, a Black Widow spider. And then D100 trinkets are things like a BB gun, a towel, a, you know, casino playing cards, a husk doll, things like that. So tons of flavor, and it's a really cool, simple way to give you like, here are 2 little things that then we can extrapolate a lot of things out of. I played a Teamster once, and I got one of these that was like aged mining script, like old you know, script from like a mining town, you know, in the like 1800s or whatever, in America. And I was like, okay, my family is like a long history of mining, and that sort of was like key to that player's identity. Just that I built up from that there. All right, we're really close to the end, at least as it stands right now. So it looks like our last big main thing here is going to be contractors. So at many ports throughout the galaxy, you'll find broke and hungry freelancers, hitchhikers, pioneers, and mercenaries all looking for work or a ride to the next system. If you find your crew light and need extra hands to fulfill your mission or staff your ship, you may want to hire a contractor. But you should be careful, as many contractors can be cutthroat and disloyal, leaving you to die when you need them most. They're much simpler characters than the ones you'll play, and they only have 4 stats: combat, instinct, wounds, and loyalty. Combat looks exactly like your own combat stat, showing how good they are in a fight. Instinct is a catch-all stat for fear, sanity, body, speed, intellect, everything else. You basically use that to roll everything else that is combat. Wounds, contractors don't track health per wound. Instead, any damage they take counts as a wound. So it's just saying this person can get hit 3 times. They can get hit 5 times. Loyalty. Loyalty is a save that is rolled when the contractor needs to make a decision between what's best for them and what's best for you. Oh, hey. Hello, Tom. Hello, Tom. Yeah, it's cool art for sure. There's some really cool art we just looked at here on the armor page. This is like some truly next level art as well. That is awesome. And like a big difference from the original. But yeah, so contractors. So that's the stats. We've got combat, instinct, wounds, loyalty. Pretty straightforward. Now this loyalty save. So it's a save that's rolled whenever the contractor needs to make a decision between what's best for them and what's best for you. On a success, they help you out. On a failure, they help themselves out. Each contractor has a loyalty save of 2d10 plus 10 rolled after they are hired. So they could have as high as a 40, and they could have as low as a 12. If you have a contractor with 12 loyalty, you know that person is going to screw you over. This is obviously a lot of fun as the warden. A lot of complications, a lot of things that can be thrown. Like, hey, you need to not rely super heavily on these contractors because, hey, you're paying them really cheaply. You may not be taking great care of them. You're just expecting them to know exactly what they do without being like a full member of the crew, that kind of thing. So I think that's interesting. But you could still apply advantage and disadvantage to that save like anything else, right? I could say, hey, you have loyalty at advantage because, you know, they're going to roll, you're going to roll their loyalty at advantage because you just saved their friend. Like you just healed, you just like patched their neck wound up a scene ago. So they are going to fight for you because you fought for them, that kind of thing. That's what at least how I would run it as a ward. These simplified stats make contractors easier to track. Contractors are generally weaker than you are and don't last long, so be sure to protect them. Hiring contractors. Contractors are paid a monthly salary with 1 month paid up front. Additionally, contractors usually demand hazard pay equal to an extra month's salary anytime they engage in combat or any other life-threatening danger as a result of the job. Non-payment or partial payment results in a loyalty save at disadvantage. So there you go. You could have someone whose loyalty is only 12 and you didn't pay them. You've stiffed them, right? Okay, well, good luck. They're probably going to leave you behind. Especially if there's a chance that they could have a ship, you know, of their own. They could have some equipment. They could have half the loot you've already taken out of the place you're exploring. Hiring contractors. Contractors are paid a monthly... Oh, sorry, I just read that part. Contractors always indicate a beneficiary who will seek any payments owed them in the event of their death, which is very funny. So you can't even get out of paying them if they die. They will, you know, their family will come and say, hey, my dad died working for you and you owe us 2 months of rent. So, you know, you basically will probably have debt on both ends. You're going to have debt on the top of who do you owe your ship, what sort of outstanding payments do you have to the company for damages, things like that. And also, hey, if you got your own employees, you owe them too. So contractors, let's go back to the single page view here. So here's a list of sort of example contractors, types of contractors. So you can roll D100 if you want to get a random one, or you can go through and pick like, hey, what kind of job are you looking to have filled, right? So a lot of times when we've played, number of times we've played in the past, we haven't really had a for sure pilot. So you could say, okay, cool, well, you're going to have a contractor as your pilot because the rest of your crew is really outfitted for different things. Okay, pilot. So 3,000 credits a month. So you're going to pay 3,000 when you bring board. If you're taking them into a firefight in the ship, that kind of thing, it's going to be another 3,000. So pilot has 1 wound, 15 combat, and 25 instinct. In huge debt to a powerful crime syndicate. So they kind of give you a lot of examples of, you know, you could really just roll D100 to get these motivations for almost any kind of person. Secretly a wanted serial killer in hiding, escaped from a corporate research facility. So these could actually be fun things for the warden to roll and then maybe bring up as play goes on or not, you know, but to have that sort of be a hidden role would be pretty cool. Gunner, marine, pilot, survival guide, surgeon, teamster, therapist, void urchin, you know, all those things. So it looks like the toughest they get is about like an officer, marine, 3 wounds, 35 combat, 35 instinct. So, you know, they are definitely not nearly as tough or as resilient as players, and players can already be not super resilient as they are. Who controls the contractor? Contractors are generally controlled by either the player who hired them or by any player who doesn't have a character present in the scene currently. This helps keep everyone engaged. That is a great way it's always good to have backup sort of characters around in a game where death is really common. Replacement characters. Contractors make great replacement characters if and when your character dies or becomes otherwise incapacitated or unusable. Simply roll up the contractor's stats as normal, dropping instinct and reroll in combat. They may have lower stats than the contractor originally did, but this is okay because they'll also have skills now to help make up the difference. Improving loyalty. Any contractors who survive a job and are paid in full increase their loyalty by 1. Increases of 1d5 or 1d10 should be reserved for exigent circumstances like saving the contractor's life or splitting large paydays with them. That's cool. That's awesome to say, hey, you paid this person a bonus. You really saved their life. You had that loyalty moment with them where you could have banded them and you chose not to. So they're going to be more loyal to you in the future. And that could lead to really cool building up of like a ship's crew where you have like 5 contractors that have stayed with you for a long time, and now they're all at like loyalty, 65 and 70 and stuff, and that's pretty awesome. Contractors can be assumed to have 1 piece of armor, 1 weapon, and 1 tool that would be suited for their profession. For ammunition, you can treat the first critical failure result as they are completely out of ammo. Anything beyond this, you'll need to purchase. That's wonderfully simple. I really like that. All right, and then we get into the last little bits here. The character sheet, which is a reworked version of the really great character sheet from 0 edition. Same wonderful flowchart. You just start up here in the upper left corner, work your way down, follow the arrows, you get everything you need to get. Should take you 5 minutes, 10 minutes, even for first time people, to walk them through making a character. Give me 1 second. Okay, sorry about that. I am back. So, yeah, lock by proxy in the chat says, honestly, I wish that's how ammo was for characters. Well, I mean, that would be a very simple way to implement that. I do think there are certain kinds of players who love tracking ammo, and then there are definitely players who don't, or want that to be maybe a more like cinematic up to chance kind of thing. So I actually think that's a really good call out for, you could just do away with ammo tracking on the player level and you could operate it that way, which is pretty fun. That would definitely lead to some like, oh, a critical fail on this combat roll is very bad. Not only did you fire and hit the oxygen tank nearby and some part of the room is venting, but also you feel it click and that's the last, shot in the chamber. You don't have a gun anymore. And then the very back cover, so it looks like inside the back cover would be the full character sheet, and then the back cover itself is how to play Mothership. This is sort of like your, earlier in the part 1 that I did of this, we read through the first part of the book. This is essentially what they said. They just said hey, read the first 2 or 3 pages, the basics, and then they were like, go look at the back cover, use that and play. So this should give us 90% of what we really need to play. So let's see if it does. Stat checks. When you want to do something and the price for failure is high, roll D100 less than your strength, speed, intellect, or combat to succeed. Fail and gain 1 stress. Tells me exactly what I need to know. Saves. To avoid certain mental, physical, or emotional trauma, roll D100 less than your sanity, fear, or body to succeed. Fail and gain 1 stress. I think the roll D100 less wording is kind of confusing to me. I would probably have it say roll D100. Roll D100, results. I don't know. I guess it's fine. It reads weird to me. I want it to say to avoid the roll D100. If the result is less than your fear, sanity, body save, you succeed. I kind of want to be written more like that, a little more explicitly. Panic checks. When the worst has happened, to avoid panicking, roll the panic die 1d20 greater than your current stress, or else panic. Skills. If you have a skill relevant to the task at hand, you can add its skill bonus to your stat before rolling a stat check. Gives you the basics, which are also there on the character sheet. Advantage and disadvantage. If you have a situational advantage, roll the dice twice and take the best result. If you have a situational disadvantage, roll the dice twice, take the worst result. Very straightforward. Criticals. Whenever you roll doubles on D100, the result is a critical. If the result succeeded, it's a critical success. It's something very good happens. If the result failed, it's a critical failure. Something bad happens and you must make a panic check. It's good to have it explicitly written out here that you need to make a panic check when you critical fail. That is kind of just like failing and taking 1 stress is core to the system working as intended. So is this panicking on critical failure. That way, even no matter what other specific things and Warden's discretion moments come up with panic, you know that a panic has a good chance of happening, you know, once or twice within a session. Per character. Violence, damage and wounds. Whenever you take damage, mark off the bubbles on your sheet. When a wound loses all its health, mark off the wound and roll on the wounds table. A lot of people seem to be kind of confused about wounds from like the Discord and chat I've seen on Twitter. This feels pretty straightforward to me. So that this, I think, reads well to me. I guess I have understood that system pretty well. It seems pretty intuitive to me, but I wonder if they will tweak some of this wording and stuff from the number of people who don't seem to quite understand what wounds are that way. Is that critical fail panic check a new thing? I don't know if it's a new thing from 0 edition or not. To this, I feel like it may have been more general, just like roll panic when, you know, you would panic. I think a lot of times it was more tied to when you failed a save. Roll panic was kind of how, at least I feel like I ran the 0 edition rules more. But to have it be more tied to critical failures and just have stress accrual tied to saves is probably a better way to slowly ramp that up. But also the other thing too that this book has been very keen about, especially the first half, is like this part here. When you want to do something and the price for failure is high, like you should really be rolling very infrequently compared to, especially outside of like violent encounters, compared to something like Dungeons and Dragons. And that's even a thing that's hard for me to remind. It's like something I always have to remind myself of too, of like, hey, is this something someone could do? Is there, like, what is the price of their failure? If they fail to open the door, no, they just like don't really do it. You know, if it's a locked door or there's nothing, you know, do you look for anything? Okay, we'll roll to see if you can find something in the room. It's like, no, there's just nothing in the room, you know. That's always the battle, I guess, there. So I think going along with that is if you're not rolling very much, you should really only be panicking, you know, limitedly, but it should have a profound effect when it does. And it's more likely to go wrong because you should still be getting regular stress. So damage and wounds, armor and cover. You can ignore any damage less than the AP of your armor or cover. Any damage greater than that value destroys the armor or cover and carries over. That could be a little more explicit probably. I know what it means is saying if your armor protection is 5 armor points and you take 6 damage, 5 of it is destroyed. The armor is destroyed, 5 of it is eaten up by the armor, and you take 1 more damage. But, you know, I would want that to say, like, any damage greater than the AP of your armor or cover destroys the armor or cover, and the remaining damage carries over to you. That kind of thing. It's also, I don't remember it saying it in here. They might want to include something saying cover takes AP damage before your armor, and then you take damage last. That intuitively makes sense to me, so I don't think that they need to spell that out, but they... death. Whenever you take damage and have no wounds remaining, roll on the final wounds column of the wounds table. Straightforward. And then range, close. It can touch you, nearby. It can get to you, far away. It can shoot you, out of range. You can hear them scream. So this is good to have here because guns refer to those kind of ranges. And that is the whole thing. So yeah, I mean, I think, you know, overall, I guess, put my video back on here. I feel like my takeaways here is overall, I think it's very good. I think that they have done really smart streamlining. It doesn't feel like you know, always bringing up Dungeons & Dragons. I have a lot of D&D experience, but it feels like, it doesn't feel like 4th E to 5th edition of Dungeons & Dragons. This feels really more like you're going from an early access version of a game to a full, the full release of a game, which it really is what it is. It just so happens that the early access version of that game took off pretty well. So a lot of people didn't even think of it as being an early access version of a game. Yeah, I mean, I think my big thoughts on this text as it's written right now are I think that the skill section is written a little too heavy, like saying that a master skill is you are a luminary of your field, like only aware of the most cutting edge techniques, and it, it would take years, decades to achieve that, and you only get plus 10% more than someone who's just trained in it. I think there's some wording things they could redo here to make that the skill bonus feel a little more in line with the mechanical aspect of it. I think I love the wound change. I love the panic table changes. The wound table adds a lot of flavor to it. I think simplifying range is great. I think being much more explicit about saying you should only roll when the price is high. And they really hammer that home. Like, you should be rolling much more rarely than you do in a lot of RPGs, I think is good, because that fits that system and should make every roll that additionally tense kind of thing. Having more fleshed out like radiation, atmospheres, the shore leave stuff I love, because I'm so excited to have these really high impact adventures, and then that very chill sort of downtime where you can be like, I want to work a job for 2 weeks, I'm gonna relax, I'm gonna de-stress. I feel like you have to have those like high highs and those low lows of sort of tension to have longer form horror. You can't have just full throttle horror all the time. That's the stuff that personally in my upcoming play I'm about to dig into as our first sort of post-adventure. We wrapped up What We Give to Alien Gods by Lone Archivist, and we're going to go into our first downtime now that we have these rules. So I'm really interested to see how that goes. I think the space travel thing, at least for me, is probably a little more than I need, but I don't think that it's, it's obviously it all fits on one page. It's not nearly as clunky as some systems could be, but I imagine the way I would probably play this out is just saying, hey, where do you want to go? Okay, give me a second, think about this, okay, that's going to be about 8 months of travel, it's going to cost you this amount of money, do you have the money? Cool, we got the money. Okay, let's montage that. What does that look like? I really do hope that in the Shipbreakers stuff, where it's more that ship focused travel, space combat focused, they build this out to have tables and things I can roll on for, various ways it can go wrong, various ways it can go right, various ways it can go weird, or just add flavor and side stuff to it. But they're doing a whole separate book on ship stuff, so I'm sure something like that will be in here. They're known for tables. I really like the port system, having there be a reason to maybe divert, go out of your way, take an extra week in hyperspace to get to a different port is cool, because I think in a longer campaign you want to have that sort of cluster of space that your characters are inhabiting, and this would be a good way to be like, our home base is that X class place, that the really seedy underbelly type place we love, but this is the closest place, is this B class working sort of factory port. Let's stop in there, let's get this, because we need to get back to this other place. So I think this is also very simple in terms of just having this table right here be a way for you to say, how much is lodging, how much is permanent residence, how much does it cost to convert your stress, what kind of treatment can you get, what kind of moonlighting can you do. All of that is just in this one table, which is, I think, really good design. Shore Leave's a great addition. I will say, maybe it's just me. The other thought I had is, I do feel like right now where space travel and ports are feels very weird, feels very out of place. We get like the survival, we get range, distance checks, survival. Then we just get, hey, here's space travel, here's ports, which are more that downtime, longer campaign play. Then we go back to loadouts, firearms, armor, and equipment, which are very like every game needs this. So I would probably swap them. I would have it be like the last quarter of the book is for that campaign play, which I think we'll get even more of in the Warden's Guide. But I would probably keep that stuff to kind of its own little section, because I think a lot of players are either definitely going to hit it or not. It's like, we play Mothership for one shots. I don't need to know about space travel. I don't need to know about shore leave, downtime. Same with contractors. I would put like contractors, shore leave, that all in one section. But they know a lot more about this than I do. This is just me thinking through the way I'd like things, I guess. But yeah, overall, I think it's really good. We've already played through, my personal group has already played through a big chunk of this stuff, and like using a hack basically that we could of stuff we already knew from the Kickstarter and YouTube videos Tuesday Night Games put out. I think we generally all really liked the changes. I think as the warden, the big things for me that I'm going to continue to try to develop are only rolling when the price of failure is high, and granting advantage and disadvantage. I almost never think of it in play for some reason, just because I think of it a lot in something like Dungeons and Dragons, which kind of, I think, pioneered that for a lot of people. I'm sure it didn't actually pioneer it, but I think it's a lot of people's first exposure to advantage, disadvantage as a mechanic was in that like D&D Next 5e thing, for at least for me. So I just don't even think of it as being an element of the game nearly enough. So I think both players and wardens having a better that more advantage disadvantage in mind, because if you were the player and saying, I think I'd have advantage here, like, are you okay if I take, would you grant me advantage on this for this, and then the warden's like, yeah, actually that makes sense, I think that would be good. So that's my big takeaway as the warden. Rolling as infrequently as possible is, I think, important. Making sure to always give one stress on a failed roll, making sure to panic check on critical failures, and granting more advantage and disadvantage is the big one. The new violence system, I would say, is also great. I think it was a big standout in what we ran with this as well, to not have it go into initiative and a tactical grid, and it felt like more the flow, and I at least felt like it led the players to be much more creative and thoughtful in what they were doing. They didn't go into, I have to move, I have to shoot. My options are like, I can shoot, I can throw the grenade I have. It was like it felt like it kept everyone's head open to the space, the possibilities, doing something that isn't written on their character sheet, because we didn't kind of go into minigame mode, combat minigame mode. But yeah, overall, I'm really looking forward to it. I'm really looking forward to the changes they keep adding. But just like Zero Edition, there's no reason that you couldn't play a longer term campaign, and especially things like one shots with every single thing we have here. I don't think there's any glaring holes. I could see them maybe adding a page or two of art, or maybe swapping some order of things around, being a little more explicit in some places, being a little more explicit in others. I think that could be good, but honestly, yeah, mechanically, I don't really have an issue with much of anything in here. The few nitpicks I have really do come around that writing of like, hey, the skills come across like really intense commitment time, and then also the shore leave aspect that we did actually talk about today too, of, let me find it, of 3 shore leaves to remove 1 permanent condition, and then 5 shore leaves to learn a new skill. If I'm assuming that every shore leave is kind of between an adventure, similar to like Downtime or something like Blades in the Dark, a game like that, which it does say, it represents the downtime between contracts and adventures. 3 feels like a lot. 3 feels like a lot of characters might not survive that. 5 feels like really high cost. And considering skills are really the only way to get better at doing things, you can get better at saves from stress, but the only way to get better at doing things are skills. That's probably a number I would cook down if I was. I really do think I would maybe go to tiered. I would do like 1, 3, 5. 1 downtime for a trained skill, 3 for an expert skill, 5 for a master skill. You're already going to have to pay money, and you're going to have to spend your time. I'd probably say most of your downtime is spent learning this skill. The treatment, I think, at 3 conditions is fine. There might be some conditions on that panic table, like, I don't know, I can't think of one off the top of my head, but there might be some more mundane or like lower grade conditions on the panic table that I would rule someone only needs 1 shore leave for 2. But yeah, so I would maybe like to see some tweaks around that, but that's just me reading it out loud. That's not me playtesting it. They're going to get tons of play reports, and especially longer term campaigns between now and the actual launch. So I'm assuming they're going to have a lot of data to work with there. So those are my thoughts. That's my thoughts on the current work in progress release of the player's survival guide for Mothership. soon. Next, I'm going to, mess with some of that downtime here with my own group, do some shore leave now that we have the proper rules for that, kind of jumping into the campaign. And then I'm probably going to be doing playtests for my own upcoming Kickstarter that's going to launch in February as a module that will be launching 1E compatible here. So follow me here for more on that. Or if you're watching this, probably came from Twitter or Discord or something, and you can find me there. But yeah, thanks for watching.